this is Roger Green, host of the podcast still known for now as SurfingNASH Tsunami. Today we are offering 4 conversations from episode 35, in which Jörn Schattenberg, Louise Campbell, and I joined together for the first time in a month to look back at the first half of 2023 and forward to the second half in terms of episodes and lessons. Plus, we have a vault episode from last November addressing the psychology of diet decision-making. This conversation focuses significant attention on issues related to the change in nomenclature that was rolled out in final form at the EASL Congress in June. It starts with me sharing an item from a recent news story about Madrigal Pharmaceuticals deciding not to engage in the nomenclature change until regulatory agencies have ruled on it, which is a logical step given where resmetirom stands in the approval process. I comment that the name change was necessary, offers a profound benefit in terms of looking at med-ALD, but has some challenges in terms of communicating the disease. Louise notes how important communicating the disease properly is in educating patients, and expresses concern that professionals might not communicate the disease or communicate it properly if there is confusion around nomenclature, as there currently appears to be. Jörn Schattenberg notes that we're not confused about the disease the patients have, but only how to describe it. I agree, and say that I'm not concerned about hepatologists describing it no matter what the nomenclature is, but have some issues that the primary care and nursing professionals who populate the front line will get this right, and Louise agrees. At the end of the conversation, Jörn agrees as well and states that we need to shift focus towards looking at how to educate the frontline treater categories if we are to succeed with this nomenclature and the work we need done on the disease. Reviewing this episode and the various conversations reminded me of how much information has become available already this year and what it portends in terms of future episodes and an ever-increasing explosion of new information about liver disease and drugs and tests, etc. It's quite a lot to digest. Very exciting to consider, particularly going forward. So sit back, listen, learn, and when you're done, join the dialogue on our LinkedIn discussion group.
Jörn Schattenberg.
So maybe that's the segue to the second topic I mentioned and the name change. And Roger, you're nodding, so why don't you,
Roger Green,
share your thoughts on that?
One thing I was going to share is an article came out in the last week where Madrigal made the statement that they do not intend to take any action on nomenclature until it's been approved by the regulatory agencies. So if you go back to Louise's concern, you now have a place where the people I've been saying every time we talked about this that Madrigal, I think they're smart and talented people and good marketers, and they'll get this right. But we're now in a place where they can't really take the steps we'd like to see them take in that direction with the new nomenclature, and it may be of limited value to take it with the old nomenclature. I think that the process was important to execute. There was a real problem that it dealt with, and I'm a big fan of the law of unintended consequences, and here I think we're about to visit the law of unintended consequences. I believe there is no more debate about the name change. The name change is over. That's happened. And there's some real benefits to it. The med-ALD is, I think, hugely helpful. It could be that as many as half the people that really have the disease, or more since no one's been able to get this number, fit into a category that we never researched, which is horrible. So that's a big benefit. Getting the whole world on the same page, and I expect eventually even APASL and the Aussies will follow and we'll all be on the same page. That's a real benefit. But there are going to be challenges around education and communication. And this is, I think, a rather sterling example of that, Louise.
Louise Campbell.
I think it is, but it's not insurmountable, but it is something that needs to be actioned and planned for in the near future. Patients, from my perspective, they don't necessarily mind as long as you tell them what they've got. If we're confused about what they've got, then they will lose confidence, and I don't want to see that. We've changed the name. We may not all agree with it. However, it's there. If it get approved, then we need to get behind it to make the best of it, provide the education materials, and start to get the best information out there.
Yeah, but let me revisit your first statement. We're not confused about what the patient has, and I think the physicians and the nurses and the support staff that are out there can support those patients and implement, and provide care to them. I mean, they have fatty liver disease, okay? And the important consideration here is the alcohol, or is it the metabolism that's driving this disease, leading to cancer and cirrhosis? And I think that the field is very clear. Now, the confusion around how you call this, again, was a big scientific debate with many pros and cons being exchanged in papers that have been highly cited, but the disease hasn't changed and the patient haven't really changed. I understand how for a company that just moves its drug over the finish line for conditional approval, this could be a little scary, but I still know how and which patient I would want to treat if I get the drug approved.
So, Jörn, I don't think it's scary. I just think it's about caution. It's clear that the right thing to do is to advocate for the indication you're going to get until the day something changes. So the path's pretty straightforward. There's a damage to it. And where I think, going back to Louise's comment, I'm mindful of the FDA advisory board discussion on Intercept and our discussion on obeticholic acid, where we agreed that folks like you and Manal Abdul-Malik would know exactly how to handle whatever might come up, but that this drug was going to wind up in the hands of people who didn't, and that was why safety became a concern. I think the point Louise expressed, I hear similarly, which is if everybody in Mainz goes to your office, or even better, Stuttgart, goes to your office to find out about what steatotic liver disease is, that'll be great. And you're tired tonight, my friend, you'll be exhausted every Tuesday by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the places that they will go are the places that are going to require more education.
I'm ready to take him on, but I don't think I can handle all of it.
In that regard, though, one of the things I do find encouraging is that some of the KOLs who were assigned to work on implementation in the States and who volunteered to do so are people who voted no on the name change, which I think is the ultimate correct acceptance, which is, okay, what you believed doesn't matter. This is done. Things about it were clearly right. Now let's just implement as cleanly and as quickly as possible so that we don't run into the situation Louise is concerned about. Louise, did I get the locus of your concern correct?
Yeah, I listen to patient forums. I watch some patient forums, and the overwhelming expression is the frustration about nobody telling them anything or what they're told, or they just get told it and left to do it themselves. It's something we can correct, and I do think the opportunity to be able to do that comes with the first medication approved, because you tend to get company literature that comes out with it. You get better descriptions, you get the internet, GLI, and it doesn't matter how many times that I will refer people to the GLI or to the British Liver Trust or to NASH Knowledge or any of the other foundations and forums. People will choose to go or not go. They're very much on the same page. That's the benefit. But when you hear patients get frustrated with the medics, physicians, primary care and allied health not really being able to describe it to them very well, I think, yeah, if I was a patient in Germany, I'd be walking through Jörn's door and I'd be seeking him out. So you may be very busy, Jörn, but that's not always the case everywhere. Or Stephen or name.
Yeah, so that's the next point. We got to start in building the education and bringing this forward. And EASL and ASLD have stepped up to now start. I think the scientific debate is over. As I agree with you, Roger, there's not going to be a new nomenclature or an additional Delphi or something. So there's been consensus in the scientific field now, and now the implementation starts. Now you can criticize that and say, well, you should have looked at that first. And, you know, those are academic, scientifically motivated professional societies. So I do see activities in that arena, and they will inform the field and take responsibility in educating fellow physicians to roll this out.
Agreed. I'm not sure that, first of all, I think Louise is going to have something to say later in this episode about the idea that the nomenclature is never going to change again. But we'll come back to that one in a minute when we start talking about our August episodes. But I believe that the societies are not the most efficient way to get that done. And if there's one thing I wish had happened, and I agree with you, at this point I think criticism is, well, let me amend that. Criticism will be helpful to the degree that someone does this as a case study, and in the future another professional society dealing with a similar challenge, and I'm sure there will be some, can go back on what went right here and what didn't go as right as it could have here and what frankly went wrong here to learn how to do it better. People can only work with what they know and what's been done before. People stepped up to do something really important. They did the best they could. I think the name is fine. The rest of it we'll deal with from here. I think the challenge now is that the societies probably aren't the best people to do that they clearly have a role to play, but it's not their area of expertise. So we'll see. That said, as I say, I think right now it's all about we all get together, we all get behind the plow, we all push the plow forward, we get it done, period.
And now, back to Roger.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. If you have any questions or comments about the content of this conversation or the entire episode, please put them in the review section of the page from which you downloaded the conversation, or send an email to questions@surfingnash.com. If you have suggestions for episodes you'd like to see us prepare in the fall, that would be the right way to send those to us as well. We'll be back next week, ideally with one of the conversation topics Louise Campbell discussed in conversation 4 of this episode. Until then, stay safe, surf on. We'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye now.